All right, so today I'm going to be going over hiring and managing seasonal workers. I can see the chat, so if you have questions, pop it in there. I can't see the cameras, so if there's something you want me to know, make sure you put that in the chat. But first, I'm going to go over some MAT updates. I don't have very many for you today. If my computer decides to start working, okay, there. Oh, no, guess not. Hello? Okay, there. Fixed it. Okay, so we're in the midst of districts meetings right now. District 7 is tonight in Cambridge. Coming up, we have districts 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 in the following week and a half, or we'll be giving kind of an overview on or one of the attorneys. I'm starting next week. Steve is this week. We'll be giving kind of an overview on relevant case law in the last year and legislative updates and things like that, as well as the regular district meeting events, such as elections, if you have one, or other events within the district. So make sure that you attend those if you haven't already. To keep updated and to make sure you are heard in whatever upcoming elections you might have. Also, I would just like to put in here as a side note, I'm always thinking of future presentations and what kind of information I can bring you guys, and communication is key in that. So I'd love your input as I plan future presentations or future Township Tuesdays. We have a ton of topics on the pipeline, but I also want to make sure that I'm addressing issues that matter to you. So if there's a speaker or a subject that you think would be valuable, even if it's from an outside organization, please let me know. Your suggestions are really, really useful and make stronger and more relevant Township Tuesdays. So don't be shy. And then also the .gov website requirement. I wrote about websites in the Insider in this last round, and I've had a couple of questions on the .gov portion of it. So I'm just going to cover that a little bit too. So during the 2024 legislative session, Minnesota Statute Chapter 112 was amended to add a new requirement, and that is that all townships who have a website are required to switch to a .gov domain. So if you don't have a website, you don't have to worry about this at all. Just kind of take a nap for the next 5 minutes. But they want you to switch to a .gov domain just because it's supposed to improve security and consistency in government websites. So people know that they're on a government website, basically. But there are two deadlines that you need to keep in mind with this. So June 1st of 2026, the township must have applied for a .gov domain. So if you haven't applied by then, or if you have applied by then, but you haven't transitioned, you're still in compliance, but you have to apply by then. The second is by June 1st of 2028, which is when you must actually have been transitioned into a .gov domain. That just means your website can't end with .com or .org or anything else. So what you should do now is start the application process at get.gov. The link is right there. Otherwise, you can reach out to Leslie. She is willing to help townships to kind of make this transition. Or if you're lucky enough to have an IT provider or something along those lines, they can help you out too. But keep the documentation when you apply, because that date does matter. I have a question in the chat. We have a road that is a township road. It services only one house. The resident that lives there is a truck driver, as in big semi trucks. He drives up and down the road all the time. We just put loads of, there's something in the way. just put loads of Class V on the road, and with his driving on there all the time, it pushes the gravel out to the sides of the road. Is there anything we can do to regulate how much he drives on there? You can put weight limitations on there. I don't know if that would apply to those trucks. But other than that, it can be difficult to kind of get damages. I'll send you the process for that, Pat. Because it's kind of a longer process. I'll send that to you via email, if that works. So just so I can make sure to get through this stuff today. Okay, so seasonal workers. Now that I've covered the .gov domain stuff, does anybody have questions on that? If you do have questions, make sure you reach out to me or Leslie, and we can help you get started with that process. Again, if you don't have a website, don't worry about it. You're not required to have a website, but if you do have a website, there are some additional regulations that you have to follow. So, all right, seasonal workers. Today we're going to talk about them and temporary employees. This is a year-round issue, right? It's road work in the summer, snow removal in the winter, extra help in projects, whatever it may be. Townships often rely on seasonal staff. So today I'm going to walk you through the key legal practical issues in hiring seasonal workers so you guys can avoid liability when using this kind of employment. So advertising and hiring. So townships are not required to advertise for seasonal employees and seasonal positions, but it is best practice to do so because it can avoid claims of discrimination. For example, if only men have ever been hired historically for mowing and a woman applies but was never given the chance, that could lead to a claim of gender biases. So always document that the township accepted applications and why the person chosen was qualified to take that role, or why you chose that person over the other people. Remember, keep positive information about the person you did hire and avoid negative information about the person you didn't hire. So as a practical step, even if you're rehiring the same person every year, which is often the case, posting and opening the job for advertisement just minimizes risk. Remember, appearance does matter. So you want to make sure that even if only one person ever applies for this job, you always hire the same person. It's still looks like you're trying to find the best person to take that role. And maybe someone comes along who maybe does fit that role better. So it's always good practice to advertise, even if you continuously hire the same role over and over again. All right. Define the employment period. So you want to set a clear start and end date when you're hiring this person. And that is because it prevents claims for this person if the employment is, if it's unclear how long those employees are with you. So for example, it could prevent claims under the Veterans Preference Act, which gives additional rights to veterans if employment is not clearly temporary. And it prevents employees from gaining collective bargaining rights if employment exceeds that certain limit on those timelines. So make sure you have a clear start and end date to when that employee is hired and when that employment will discontinue. It's a good idea to provide an offer letter stating an start and end date to those employees too, so they are aware of when it starts and finishes. The chat is kind of blown up, so I'm going to address that a little bit.
Oh, it's just me rambling, Mary.
Oh, okay.
No worries.
Okay. Oh, Pat, I said I'm going to send you that process via email just so we could keep on with the presentation. It's a little bit longer of an explanation, but I'll send you the process via email if that works. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so define the employment period. Make sure that you and the employee know when that employment period begins and ends. So ending the employment and rehiring. So at the end of the term, remove the seasonal employees from payroll, even if you plan on rehiring them next year. This reinforces the idea this is a temporary employee. It's the temporary nature of the job. Uh, and always have those rehires complete new employment paperwork, for example, I-9s or W-4s, et cetera, whatever that may be. Treat them like a brand new employee each year. This just really reinforces the fact that they are temporary employees, so that it's clear to everybody that they fall into that certain category. All right, let's talk about PALRA. So this is collective bargaining rights. PALRA is the Minnesota law. Temporary employees, do they get earned sick and safe time? Yes. So if they are projected to work more than 80 hours, they get earned sick and safe time. I don't cover earned sick and safe time in here, but yeah, the definition of employee on earned sick and safe time is really, really broad. So, but PALRA is the Minnesota law that governs labor relations between public employers, you guys, and their employees. It sets the rules for collective bargaining, employees' rights, and employer obligations. So the important question to ask is which employees are actually covered by PALRA, because not all of them are. For example, many towns don't have regular year-round employees, but PALRA does cover anyone who qualifies as a public employee, which might include seasonal workers. Seasonal workers, like people that we hire for road maintenance, grading, mowing, plowing, can fall under PALRA if they are employed for more than 67 working days in a calendar year. So probably not election judges because they're probably not working more than 67 days for a calendar year. If they are not specifically excluded in a category like elected officials, independent contractors, or temporary volunteers, and students who are under 22 years old working less than 100 days per year, they are also excluded. If seasonal workers stay under that 67-day limit, PALRA usually does not apply to them. But once they cross that threshold, they are considered public employees under the law. That means they have a right to unionize, bargain collectively, and be a part of a bargaining unit if one exists. So if the township hires seasonal workers for short periods, less than 67 days, we don't need to worry about those obligations. If we extend the employment longer, even if you unintentionally extend that employment longer, that may trigger those obligations. So the point is to keep careful track of how many days seasonal workers are employed each year. That will help the township stay within the law and avoid accidentally creating an employee relationship that you weren't planning for. So make sure that you know how many days that person is working or how often they're working. All right, PARA is retirement. So PARA is Minnesota's public pension system for most local government employees, including township staff. Normally, if someone is hired into a permanent position and it meets the earnings and hours thresholds, the township is required to enroll them in PARA and make contributions. However, seasonal employees and temporary employees do not participate in PARA if the job meets the statutory definitions of what a seasonal and temporary employee is. So a temporary employee is 6 months or less, and a seasonal employee is worked tied to a season, so less than 185 consecutive days. The board's definition of what a seasonal employee or temporary employee is doesn't control this. The PARA's statutory definition does. So for those kinds of positions, the general rule is if a job is intended to be seasonal or temporary and the person works less than 6 consecutive months in a year, they are not eligible for para. If the township keeps seasonal workers on for longer than that or rehires them year after year in a way that looks more like a permanent employment, this is where the appearances matter kind of comes in, then para may consider them eligible. At that point, the township should be responsible for contributions. True seasonal employees won't be eligible for para. Employees who cross that threshold might need to be enrolled. And when in doubt, check with para. They're available to work with you and kind of figure out which employees need to be covered in order to protect you from liability. No, you can't opt out of this. I don't know if the employee can. You can't force them to opt out. I'd have to double check to see if the employee can opt themselves out of para. I believe they can, but I don't want to make any commitments to that. All right. Unemployment benefits. So unemployment insurance is a state program. It's administered by the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. That's DEED for short. It provides temporary wage replacement for workers who lose their jobs through no fault of their own. So employers, townships, generally pay into the UI system through payroll taxes. This is an area where townships need to be careful because even short-term, part-time, or seasonal employment can create obligations under unemployment law. To be clear, seasonal and temporary employees can collect unemployment benefits after their employment ends. So one of the biggest misconceptions is that seasonal workers can't get unemployment, and that's not true. If they work for the township, earn enough wages, and their job ended because the season ended, they can usually apply for and collect those benefits. So even if you tell someone at the beginning of the position, hey, this is seasonal, that doesn't automatically prevent them from collecting unemployment benefits after the job ends. Seasonal employees are treated like any other employee under the law, even if they knew the job was temporary. It doesn't have to do with whether the job is temporary or not. It has to do with how much they earn. So townships can't require employees to waive those rights. So what does it mean for you? First, you'll be contributing to the unemployment insurance system through payroll. Second, if a former employee applies for benefits, DEED will contact you to confirm their wages and their reason for separation. And unless the employee quit or was discharged for misconduct, they will likely qualify for those unemployment benefits. So factor in potential unemployment claims into your budget to make sure that you can cover those. So UI doesn't look at hours, but instead wages earned based on a base period. So for 2025, to establish a valid UI claim, an employee generally must have earned at least $3,800 in covered wages during the base period, which is the first 4 of the last 5 completed calendar quarters. So someone who only works a few days and earns very little won't qualify for that, obviously. But if a seasonal employee works enough weeks to earn at least that amount, that $3,800, they can qualify for unemployment when the job ends, depending on how it ended. So if they were let go because of misconduct or they quit, they would not have that unemployment insurance. So unemployment insurance wage reports. So you must file a wage report with the unemployment insurance program every quarter, even if you have no employees that quarter. If not, DEED can assess penalties and interest of those penalties. This is the same program that we now use for paid leave reporting. So if you should have to only submit one report for both if the employee is covered by both paid leave and unemployment insurance. We have an employee still works for us, but her other job was seasonal. We're having to pay unemployment for her even though she still works for us. That's odd. Yeah, I'm not sure what the scenario is there. I'd have to dig into more of the facts there, Pat. Sorry. Accurate reporting is your responsibility in order to prevent penalties and ensure those benefits are paid correctly. So you want to make sure that you budget for potential unemployment costs, especially if you rely heavily on seasonal workers, and consider whether contracting out for certain seasonal work might make more sense instead of hiring, because independent contractors are not covered by that same unemployment insurance. All right. Wage and hour laws, FLSA. So that is the Federal Fair Labor Standards Act, and how it applies to townships and seasonal workers is these rules set minimum requirements for pay and hours, and they apply to townships just like any other employer. So FLSA is a federal law, and it covers minimum wage, overtime, record keeping, and youth employment. There is no seasonal worker exemption under FLSA. So just because you hire someone for the summer doesn't mean they are exempt. Seasonal township employees are entitled to the same protections as regular employees. So townships must pay them at least minimum wage. For 2025, that was $10.85 an hour for large employees, $8.85 per hour for smaller employees, which is defined as having $500,000 or having less than $500,000 in annual revenue. For most township seasonal workers, they aren't exempt from overtime. So seasonal employees are entitled to overtime if they work more than 40 hours in a week. And that is 1.5 times the regular pay. And you can't average out the hours across multiple weeks to avoid paying overtime. So make sure you track your hours carefully and budget for potential overtime if you think that might be coming down the line. Under FLSA, you must pay for all hours of an employee suffered or permitted to work. That means time spent preparing equipment, travel between job sites, short rests and breaks, which is less than 20 minutes, I believe. And then meal periods of 30 minutes. Meal periods of 30 minutes or more don't have to be paid if the worker is completely relieved of duty during that mealtime. If your township hires workers under 18, there are also additional restrictions. So if they are 14 to 15 years old, they have limited hours. They're not allowed to work in hazardous jobs like operating heavy equipment. And then if they're 16 or 17 years old, they may work unlimited hours, but still they're restricted from hazardous duties. Townships must keep accurate time and payroll records for employees in order to make sure they know how often this person is working, to keep track of those requirements that I listed. The general rule is that you need to treat seasonal hires just like any other employee under wage and hour laws. It protects the workers and the employees and the township from liability. So you just want to basically treat them as though they are a regular employee when it comes to work standards. All right, termination risks. So if you are ending early for cause, which is meaning misconduct or performance issues, so what does it mean to terminate someone for cause? Seasonal work often comes with a set end date, but if a problem arises and the township needs to end the employment earlier, how that's handled can affect unemployment liability and potential disputes, like I talked about earlier. So You want to make sure that you know why this person was terminated and that it's well documented, excuse me. So terminating someone for cause means that the employment ended early because the employee engaged in misconduct. Depending on the circumstances, that will disqualify them from unemployment insurance. Under unemployment insurance, misconduct means intentional or negligent behavior that seriously violates the standards of behavior the employer has a right to expect. So you want to look for things like repeatedly not showing up for work or excessive tardiness, willful refusal to follow safety rules, theft, dishonesty, destruction of property, right? Those kinds of things, intoxication or drug use on the job. Those are the kinds of things you want to keep an eye out for in terms of termination for cause. So whenever you want to terminate, document the behavior, communicate the reason, and clearly reiterate the reason to the employee when you are terminating employment. Whenever you're going through this process, you want to consult with your township attorney because employment issues do arise often. They're a hot button topic for litigation, so you want to make sure that you are doing it properly. And throughout the employment, always document any kind of misconduct, performance issues, or disciplinary issues in the past. So that when that time comes, if it comes, then you have kind of this pattern of behavior that you can show. Before a termination, you always want to review protected class considerations because you don't want to get into an issue where you're being accused of discrimination. Things like race, gender, age, disability, whistleblower retaliation, those kinds of things. So you want to make sure that you review any considerations of those issues arising as well. Because employment issues down the road are expensive and they will be a big headache if you don't do it properly. So anytime you want to terminate someone for cause, make sure you reach out to your attorney, your township attorney, and get help with doing that before getting too deep into it. All right, so before I'm done here, I just want to remind you, if they're, before you're firing this person, make sure to confirm, have there been complaints filed in the past? Is there a workers' comp claim going on? Is there a precedent from past similar situations? Are they a part of a protected class where they could have experienced discrimination? And how would we deal with those issues if they come about? So make sure you know that before getting into it. All right. In terms of seasonal employees, that is all I have for today. CUP, that's a zoning issue. So it really depends on what your zoning ordinance looks like and what the CUP is for.
So I think it's going to be easier for me to speak to it rather than try to type it in. So we had a resident contact us yesterday about a home or whatever that somebody had built last year, and they claimed it as a storage shed. But then we found out yesterday that it's actually a preschool because the neighbors had done some Facebook checking. So we've contacted the county because they did not get a conditional use permit through us. They got it through the county. It is near a lake shore, so that's why they went through the county. Just how do we go about, what is our role in doing this, even though they applied through the county to get this information?
Do you have a zoning ordinance?
Well, I'm fairly new to the board and not that I've seen. So, that's part of my problem that we're seeing. The other side of it is we can't find the information on the covenants from that because it is a residential area. So there's not been a business out there before. So that's the problem that we're coming into is we can't find the covenants for them. And it's kind of a mess actually.
Okay. I would start with taking a look at your own zoning ordinance if it exists. And then go from there. CUPs run with the land. I don't know. It's hard to, zoning ordinances are so different and so specific and unique to each township and each county that it's hard to know why that was put into place or what kind of action you can take without putting my eyes on it.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Okay, well, I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon. And Pat, I will email you about those weight restrictions. Other than that, farewell. See you in a couple of Tuesdays, or hopefully at district meetings.